It's a paradox. No workplace has witnessed more hatred, dissension and violence over the years than the Melbourne waterfront. And look at it now. Where once no man could be sure of a job from one day to the next, the Wharfies today are permanent. Where once their wages were pitiful, today they're well paid. Gruelling physical labour replaced by almost total mechanisation.
Give us a bit of attention, will you, and then I can get this over and done.
And a Wharfies union, still largely communist-led, which talks more of workers' comp and sick leave now than of revolutionary action. Union organisers, who not so many decades ago feared for their lives, talk politics now, in the boss's time. At Wharfie meetings today, hungry men will fiercely argue their right to work 7 days a week to bring in more money. And the old men will stand to one side and listen sadly and remember the bitter and bloody struggle for the right to work at all. Yesterday's men, the Depression men, gradually disappearing from the wharves, and their memories gradually disappearing with them. Men like Tom Hills, retired Wharfie, 75, living on his memories, strong memories.
This is the place they used to call the compound. You can imagine this place with 2,000 men in 1934. In one corner you'd have the scabs in a cage. Another section down there you'd have the Federation labour in another cage to keep them separated from one another because of the antagonism that was developed from the 1928 strike. Then over in this section there you'd have outside labour coming in. 2,000 men competing for jobs which wouldn't be available for them. Work was very hard to get in those days. Wages were low. There was no fixed incomes. Some weeks you would go home. You would not have any work at all. You would not have any wages that week. Foremen would come out here and men would wear all kinds of hats, all kinds of gear they would put on to attract attention for themselves. So he'd get up on a rostrum or a cage and he'd point out to the men, he'd say, you, no, not you, and at the final, if he couldn't pick up sufficient number of men and he had dockets over, he'd just throw these dockets up in the air. Men would be standing on one another's fingers to scramble to get these dockets as they fell to the floor. It was an animal existence for waterside workers.
Tom ran away from home at 13 and worked the Melbourne waterfront for more than half a century. Thrown out of work during the Depression, Tom led the Unemployed workers movement in a fierce struggle for a better deal for those whose lives were dislocated by the Depression. When sanity returned to Australia, Tom returned to the docks, rising to high office in the Wharfies Union. For a man of his toughness and ability, there were dazzling political plums waiting to be picked. Tom's brother was a New South Wales cabinet minister. But Tom Hills scorned all that. His life was on the docks. He used his muscles to earn his living, and he used his head in the continual battle for better pay and conditions on the waterfront. Wendy Lowenstein is one of Australia's leading oral historians. She records and turns into book form the recollections of ordinary people who've lived through extraordinary events. Her sources are not archives or state documents or even old newspapers, but the living memories of people. And not the captains and kings either, but the ordinary people who sailed the ships and built the roads.
When one got shot, Whittaker got shot through the back, as I tell you, and fell, and then I got shot in the arm, another one, well then we started, all those that was left, started pelting them with stones. But they started first because I heard the plainclothes man...
Her most recent book, Weevils in the Flower, is a remarkable documentary history, based on hundreds of recorded interviews. A history of what it was like to live through the Great Depression in Australia. For men like Tom Hills, who's the key to her next work, dealing with the turbulent history of the Melbourne dockyard.
this is classed as this is the Whalen Wall, what they call the Whalen Wall. I'll tell you how it got its name. I told you the story about how we were struggling to get jobs in the early days. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 days, you wouldn't get a job at all. And then we'd all meet here after the pickup finished at 10 o'clock, and we'd say, how'd you go this morning? No bloody good. Never any good at all.
When Wendy Lowenstein was born, Tom Hills was scrabbling for a living on the Melbourne docks with the Great Depression looming. Tom kept no diary, and were it not for Wendy, his memories would pass away with him. The two of them have formed a partnership, and from it is slowly emerging a record of the turbulent years on the waterfront. The meticulous recorder and the old campaigner, Lowenstein and Hills.
There's been some funny bloody things happening along here. Blokes who's been competing for jobs and they made here, you bastard, you stood on my feet this morning and I never got a job. Would you do an interview if we could arrange it? Get Wendy Lowenstein and myself together.
For months now, Tom has been showing Wendy the battlefield and introducing her to the combatants.
We all know the position of invalids. We know the position of school kids, homes, hospitals, schools.
I don't know him very well, but he strikes me as a very sharp, very quick, a bit aggressive. I was just wondering if, in fact, he's going to tell us much that he doesn't want to tell us. I mean, how...
No, Jeff, I wouldn't say he was an aggressive or sharp fella. He's a very intelligent fella. You get a great deal of experience when you're an activist on the waterfront or an official of the waterfront.
Speaking from the unionist point of view, and one that's all his life, I suppose, have worked towards unity of the workers, I would believe that the most significant thing in 1955 was the amalgamation of number 2 branch and number 1 branch of this union.
Tom, was that what you were talking about with the old P&Cs, was it?
Yeah, that was the 2 branch. The point I thought it was earlier than that, wasn't it? 52, Jeff?
No, it was 55.
Did it take us that long in Melbourne?
Well, it took us that long, Tom, because if you recall,
I just got tangled with the
people of militant thought in this branch did not make any progress until 1954, when Charlie Young was elected secretary.
And when those 2 unions joined together, this gave you the go-ahead for a united action for better conditions?
That's right.
When I'd interviewed Tom all these times for the Depression book and gone back and back and back again to him, I became more and more fascinated with the wharf. I used to live down that way and I was very interested in the wharf. A lot of friends who were wharfies. And I said to him, Tom, would you help me write a book about the wharf? Would you introduce me to people and come with me and translate? Because that's what Tom does. That's what he did with the Wharfies. He translates, so helps me understand, asks the questions that I don't know how to ask because I don't know enough about it, you see. And he said he would. I was thinking, well now, you know, just saying in the front and thanks to Tom Hills isn't enough. I can't do this sort of thing without him, well then it's fair that it should be Hills and Lowenstein. And he was most reluctant, but at the same time tremendously gratified. It wasn't that he'd share the royalties, it was that he would see his name on something, and he knew it was just that he should have his name. And if he hadn't have thought it was just, he'd have said, no, I'll do it for you. And as he stops it, you give it a flip to the bloke down in the hold who's ready with a full basket to hook on for you, and then it comes up 60 miles an hour again, stops in front of you, you knock it onto the trolley. The trolley man runs down this plank with it, another one comes, the hook comes back, and this is going very fast. Now how come, if it's going so fast, that you don't hurt your hands on it?
You don't touch it with your hands. Your hands, you've only got a wire the size of your finger running through you.
It's running through your hand.
You've got a leather palm.
Your leather palms
Yes,
on
but
both
if you
hands.
moved accidentally, bit to one side, it could tear your hand to pieces.
Oh,
Even
no.
the leather palm wouldn't stop it, would it?
No.
Yeah, it just hurt. Didn't it make your hands, did you ever hurt your hands on it?
No.
How
Yeah, the
many,
leather
Never
palm.
how many years were you on being a top man?
Well, practically all the time I was on the wharf.
That was for 40, 50, 60 years.
Look at his hands.
It's 50 years anyway.
Just look at your hands. They're not the hands of a man who's done hard work. Obviously, you never tore them on that wire.
Oh, no, there was no danger of that.
Was he a good top man, Tom?
He was a good one. He was the best.
Which way's the car?
All
Up and back? Yep. Well, it's strange, really, because he's an older man, and I'm a much younger and rather bossy woman, and you could expect Tom to, it's not to work together very well, but it's strange to see, I suppose that Tom is a man who's almost, considering his work, he's a wharfie, he works amongst men, he's almost entirely without male chauvinism, and he appreciates excellence. And he thinks in this case that what I'm doing is important. He thinks it's important, to have sort of a history made of the wharf, and either he makes a lot of allowances for me, or he's just a very nice man. And perhaps it's both.
Tell me some of the problems you had with him.
Well, the fact is that he's an exceptionally good raconteur, and he knows the people I'm working with extremely well, much better than I know them. And the tendency is for them to address themselves to him. And I have to sort of capture it every now and again, reach out and grab this bloke and say, look, I'm talking to you, not him, without saying it, of course. And I also have to do something which no good raconteur likes having done to them. You have to interrupt good stories. So just a minute, boys. I want to know this. And this sort of, and I often wonder, if one day he used to go around and say, listen, shut up.
A sample Tom Hill's yarn. 50 years ago, Tom was the ferryman across the Yarra where the Johnson Street Bridge now stands. The actors in this story are the young Tom Hills, a friend, a policeman, and a prostitute.
At that time, the river and that basin was all full of sailing ships.
What here? All sailing ships?
All sailing ships, right around here was all sailing ships. And of course the girls used to come to ply their trade over here, they had to get a quid, different ways of earning a living, that was their way of earning a living. Remember one night, one girl came over and she had a bottle of whiskey. Things were pretty quiet of a night here, you might go half an hour or an hour before you got a passenger to take across. So we decided to sit down and drink her whiskey. She opened the bottle. When we really was getting going on the bloody whiskey, in come this policeman.
Yeah?
He joined in it, you see, so the three of us
What, the policeman and the prostitute and you?
Yeah, the policeman, the prostitute and me, and we joined in it, and we was having a great old time. Well, the whiskey went off, and the girl said, well, there goes a bottle of whiskey, I'll have to go and try and get that back, recover that. So she said, to work I go. So off to work she goes, and as she's going around the basin there, the copper said to me, who'd been drinking a whiskey with me, he said, I think I'll go around and pinch her. I said, what for? He said, for soliciting. I said, you dirty bastard, you've just finished drinking a whiskey. And now you're talking about when you're going to get a quid for yourself, you're talking about, well, one thing led to another. We're full of whiskey, and it developed into a bloody fight, and I done him properly. Yes.
Was it a good fight?
Pretty good. He could go a bit. It wasn't bad. But the next night, he's still on night duty, so he said, I'll even this bloody thing up. Tom will be asleep now, so in he goes and he does the bloke in the bunk up, but it wasn't me, it was me mate. We'd changed ships. So he gave him a do it, and I never got the bloody retaliation. We were both offended by then, and my mate and I had to even it up. Well, we got the copper and we done him. But another funny instance, a lot of people commit suicide up the higher reaches of the river, and they come floating down. I don't know whether you know it, the body comes floating, bobbing up and down like just the edge showing.
Feet down.
Feet down, as if they're walking out to sea. So what we used to do, we used to hook a rope around their neck and tie them up to the stringers on the wharf. And some of them were pretty high because they'd been in the water, floated up and that. And we used to say, now what copper's on? The station was down where Spencer Street is now, and we'd say, now what copper's on? And it'd be we'd wait till our old friend was on, and he used to hate the job. It was bloody awful job.
What, he had to come down and tow him away?
So we'd ring him up and we'd say, we've got a body here, and we want you to come and take it away. We wasn't allowed to take him out the water, not that we wanted to. We used to get 10 bob a body. There was a monetary gain in it. So down would come this cop and he'd say, what
the bloody hell did you wait till now for? We've just found it. We've just found it. It's all yours.
Tom's an old union man with long memories of what's obviously been a long and bitter fight between the workers and the employers. There are two areas of your book about the waterfront which you'll have to cover: scabs and bosses. Now, I can understand Tom being of use to you in terms of fellow workers. What about those two?
First of all, you know, when you say long and bitter struggle, I'd say it was a long and zestful struggle myself. I think that's the whole thing of, you know, that the work has been almost irrelevant to Tom. It's been the fun of putting them in their place, you know. It's the fun of putting a foreman in his place, or, you know, forcing them to fix a bad rope or something. It's also been the bitterness of when you pick up somebody dead, your comrade out of the hold, and say, look what the bastards did to them.
Yeah, and the Depression wasn't much fun.
No, that's true. No, it wasn't much fun at all. But at the same time, you know, Tom never, I think, threw over a principle because he might lose a bob, even when it was the only bob he'd had for a fortnight. You know, and this whole question of bosses, I'd say Tom is highly respected on the waterfront by the bosses because they know a good man when they see one. And probably, in fact, people like Tom do more to keep the waterfront going in many ways by stopping stupidity of foremen and bosses before it got off the ground. And I think this was recognised in the wartime, when the government and the left-wing leadership of the Waterside Workers' Union worked hand in hand to keep the ships rolling. I mean, the things that a person like Tom, the old left-wingers on the waterfront, did to keep the war effort rolling, keep the wharf moving, was an incredible piece of organisation on their part. So I think that Tom could take you to a boss on the waterfront and say, no, what we're doing, this is Wendy, and that boss, I think, be a rare one who wouldn't sit down and talk to him.
For 50 years as a unionist, Tom Hills fought the stevedore bosses. And now, for Wendy's book, for the first time in his life, he's visiting one at home. Admittedly, it's Don Strang, by Tom's admission, a cut above the average. In any case, both men are well and truly retired, and being somewhat above the fight, are inclined to be well disposed towards each other. Considering.
There has always been a guerrilla warfare between management and Wharfies on the wharf. You know, that's been your life. That's been Tom's life, putting the boss in his place. Now, tell us, please, about a story where a wharfman, a foreman's, or the company's, incompetence, or whatever you call it, or bad feeling between, say, a foreman and a wharfie could lead to a loss of life. What about that story about the bloke who lost his thumb, Tom?
Oh.
Tell us about that. No names. Yeah, this foreman.
It wasn't a foreman, it was a supervisor. It was one of Don's supervisors. It was Sid. I don't know whether we should put it on record now.
Well, you can tell the story if you don't mention his name. Go on, fair.
And he walked down the pier one night, and an old fellow was ready to sling, ready to hook a sling on the hook. And he went past, and he just sang out to the hatchman, take that thing up. And he did. With the result that in the bite,
was his son?
Fun. Well, I was real mad, you know. But actually, it was two people at fault. Hatchman shouldn't have taken any notice of him to make sure that it was right, and he shouldn't have done it.
No. That's right.
Because I said, come on, get a move on with that thing there, you know. Well, these was the points of conflict, but that we'd have those conflicts. Then the thing was settled and finished with.
But that man had lost his thumb. So it wasn't finished or settled, really, was it?
No,
and he could have his life.
But that is part of the industry, isn't it?
Did it have to be part of the industry?
Yes, I think so, because of the character of the meeting.
At that time, you know, the thing was, we had the tin hair, and we had to speed it up, come on, come on.
Who was pushing you?
It's pushing us.
Who was pushing you, though?
Well, the owners, you see.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
It's a mad circle.
Now, did you?
Mad circle.
What would have happened if that man? What did happen over that incident? The bloke got
Oh,
compo, and the
He'd
foreman
probably
got frowned
got-
at. Today, this sort of thing doesn't happen on the
No,
waterfront.
because
Likely. Why doesn't
so-
it happen?
Because of both, particularly the vigilance of the employer and the union, but the union. has
Union's
pushed-
pushed you, hasn't it?
Well, to a large degree, yes.
It had to, didn't it?
Well, there was that comment.
This wall we're walking down now, general opinion was given out before 28th Strike that it was put up there to stop pillaging. I expect it has that purpose too, but it has a double purpose. It was really put up to protect the scabs that was inside working the ships from the Unionists was outside the wall, so that they couldn't get at them.
About scabs, I don't know. There's tremendous tradition against scabbing on the waterfront. So much so that even all those people who weren't actual original scabs, who didn't scab in the big 28th strike, but who joined the union, which was formed from the scabs, permanent casuals, I think they called it. Now, there's this terrible feeling that even they are not accepted as proper waterfront. They're still referred to as the scabs, even though they weren't scabs. Now, Tom himself, rather than join that union, stayed on the stones, you know, in the second preference, getting scraps of a living for many years until the Federation opened a book, and so did every other wharfie in Port Melbourne.
You mean he went hungry rather than join a scab union?
He wrote hungry rather than join a union which had been, let's put it straight, formed from strikebreakers on the waterfront because of this terrible feeling. Now, Tom will say, as he said in Weevils in the Flower, the poor devils of scabs, they didn't know what they were doing. They brought these migrants from the ships, took them down, camped them in the vacuum oil sheds up on the river, took them down the river by boat with some of the wharfies shooting at them and on occasions killing them. Took them down the river and marched them onto the ships. And these men didn't know, and they know they didn't know. But at the same time, they shouldn't have done it. You see, and I don't think that, although Tom intellectually understands what happened, emotionally, I don't think he would. I think if I insisted on on having this sort of, in the book, I think he might quit. Then, of course, the other thing is whether you're going to do portraits of the people who are in it.
Yeah, the question of personality. To what extent do we deal with personality?
No,
You know,
yeah.
for example, you see,
Now, what sort of persons were they?
so much of the book already is based on the reminiscences of personality.
To illustrate the Lowenstein and Hills book is Noel Coonahan, a Depression radical himself and an artist made famous by his concentration on workers and the way they make their living.
Then there are studies of the actual labour process, you know. In this case, the the action in which different men took the heavy bags of wheat down in the hatches, you know, and not what interested me was the fact that there was no fixed approach to this matter, that the individual wharfie worked out his own way of taking the mag. And
Whether he necked them or
yes,
or
yes, just how he
necked
took
them
the
or
weight,
what?
how he
Or
took
asked
the weight.
them.
Necked them or asked them? What's that?
carried them on his ass.
That's right. See, for example, I don't know whether I'll just see if I've got a sketch of that.
Someone asking one time?
I don't know. I think these are all taking them on the neck or the shoulder, and some took them right at the back like
Some
that.
took them-
Some took them on one
I could
shoulder,
never carry them on the arms.
and some took them right,
How would you
right
hold
on the
it
back. They did. They took and they let the bag roll.
Show us how you hold one on your ass. Go on, Tom.
Oh, you carried it this way. You see.
Yes,
Look,
you
with
took
that
it at
hand
the back.
behind you.
Yeah,
You
you
said,
took
"Oh,
it at
hold
the
the
back,
line."
straight up your back, but the necking way is across your neck.
And how did you drop them off when you...
Hey?
How did you get 'em off?
You had a way of throwing them. But when you
how they slung it.
you just threw it, it was a neck.
Oh, I see.
Necking and arsing. So often humour cloaks adversity. But there was nothing funny about working the docks in the old days. About one matter, Tom Hills never jokes. It's too close to the bone. The great dockyard strikes of the Depression era, and the means by which the Wharfies were defeated in those strikes, scab labour.
There was Czechoslovakians, Italians, who were coming into the country at that time as migrants. They were taken straight from the ships. They were taken into the compound. By the time that they'd realised what they'd done on the waterfront, it was too late. They were scabs, and there was no excuse for them.
Did the scabs live in Port Melbourne?
No scab could live in Port Melbourne because if they couldn't get him in any other way, they'd have burnt his house down where he lived. He couldn't live there. He'd have been dead in a day. There was an overhead bridge on at the Port Melbourne station, a footbridge. Without mentioning the names of the fellas, well, I could mention them because the fella is dead. Big Lofty. You knew him, Lo?
Lofty, yes.
You knew Lofty?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, Lofty and another fella dropped one of them over onto the rails there and killed him. Now, this violence was not from men what was violent by nature, but of the bitterness of these people because of the job and because of they'd taken their children and their families down into the degradation and no food and not able to get a livelihood and it becomes so very bitter. Then you say to me, now why can't we have a scab in this book? Now if we had a scab in this book, everybody else that we have in this book, Jimmy Nagle, Arthur Buono, all the people that we mentioned, it'd be most objectable to them to be associated with scabs. It's something that is traditional not only to waterside workers, but goes right throughout the working class movement. Once a scab, always a scab, and no longer associated with the working class as far as the working class is concerned. I think that deals with that question, I hope.
Now, what I was getting at, did much of it go from here straight through the shed and out the other side, like?
Yes.
In the Wharfies?
Carriers pick it up.
Yeah, but I meant other sorts of ways. I mean, you know, illegal ways of going off the wharf.
Now listen, now just hold on.
20 quid a week and half the cargo.
Now just hold on. That's just an exaggeration. There is certainly in the tough times here,
In the
when
30s.
the wages were small, and it was a battle to
Survive.
live. Well, £20 a week and half the cargo was a general saying of that.
Yeah.
You know, but there wasn't a great deal of pollution because you could only carry out what you ate inside of you, like chocolates, if there was chocolates. Well, that was inside and the coppers couldn't
That was
find
fair,
that.
that was fair.
That was
fair
fair.
pickings, was it?
And,
You know, I've got 25 hours
I
of tape
remember one time
about
just
Tom
on
Hills. And that's about 4 times as much as I've got about anyone. And the more you ask him, the more you talk to him, the more you find out that he knows, and also he thinks creatively about it. Tom's a man that could have done anything, absolutely anything he wanted to. But he chose the wharf. I mean, it's his place. He's the grand old man of the Melbourne waterfront.
I said, well, how did the AM go? He said, how'd the AM go? I went to get it and some thieving bastard has knocked it off. Well, they're the kind of instances, but you could only